Welcome back to Great Day. The average family is expected to spend nearly $864 on back-to-school shopping this year, and that's before lunches and supporting extracurricular school activities. So how do you give your kids what they need without letting the cost get out of control? Best-selling author and personal finance expert Rachel Cruze is here with some smart ways to keep your family on budget, something her parents had to do. Her dad is famous financial expert Dave Ramsey. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right. You had an advantage that a lot of us don't have. Your parents went through some tough stuff financially early on and decided that their children were never going to have to go through this. You grew up talking about money. The fact that most families don't talk about it is what helps to get us into trouble.
Yes, absolutely. I know it's so normal for parents just to kind of push this topic aside, either because they feel like they're not great with money, and or they're just kind of hoping that the kid will probably just figure it out eventually. But the earlier you can start with your kids, the better off they're going to be. And this is, I'm not saying just to hand them money. No, teach them to work, that money comes from work. Teach them once they earn money to give it, to save it, to spend it, to get out of debt, or to stay away from debt, I should say. Hopefully they're not in debt, but to stay away from debt. And then as they get older too, talking about things like contentment, investing, compound interest, generosity, all of these topics can be this, free-flowing conversation with your kids. And you really can, as parents, set them up so well with the knowledge so that they can shape their behavior around it.
Yeah, it's such an emotional attachment to money. When you don't have enough, it makes you scared. I mean, you live out of fear. When you do have money, you see it coming in through the things that you just talked about, you feel successful and you feel a lot more secure. All right, you joined Ramsey Solutions in 2010, #1 New York Times bestselling author, co-host of Smart Money Happy Hour, and you all talk about all those things that just surround money that we have to deal with in our everyday lives. Getting out of debt, hopefully not getting into debt to begin with, as you said, taking control of your money and create the life that you love. All right, money and personality. I had 2 Depression-era baby parents, and one of them was going to buy anything she wanted, would never be denied, and then my dad was the one who, we had 1 box of foil my entire life, and he would wipe it off and go, still foil, there's still aluminum, still good. All right, you are a spender at heart. How did that happen in your family?
I know. That is kind of the mystery, I would say, that a lot of people assume if you grow up as Dave Ramsey's kid, that you're just, really strict with money. You're good at details, you're good at budgeting. And that's what's wild is your personality is so much of how you handle money. So understanding yourself and your natural tendencies is so, so important. So yes, for me, I'm a natural free spirit. I am more of a spender, I would say, for sure. And so reining in and just learning, okay, I have to delay gratification. I have to save or I'm going to be broke. And the wild thing is too, when you get married, if you get married, your spouse ends up being the opposite of you. And so just like your parents, as you were saying, and so navigating money is so much about navigating ourselves, because we tend to have these tendencies either of scarcity mentality or abundance. We're spenders, we're savers. We love doing a budget. We hate doing a budget. And so really finding this balance of how we interact with money is so important, because again, personal finance is 80% behavior. It's only 20% head knowledge. We're the ones that have to be in control, right? So we have to be able to control our behavior, and knowing how you're wired with money is really that first step.
Yeah, I remember my mom, my dad would go and take a shower. She would bolt for the car and pop the trunk and pull out some clothes and hang them up. I'm like, do you think he's not noticing that the closet keeps growing, Mom? But anyway, you once viewed budgeting as restrictive, and that's one of the things we have to get out of our mind.
That's right. I always kind of saw it as, oh my gosh, it means I have to say no all the time, or I have to be cheap. Living on a budget sounded like a negative. And what I learned pretty quickly into adulthood after earning an income and starting to use this process of budgeting is that actually a budget is not, it's not denying me things. It's actually giving me permission to spend. Because a budget's not saying you can't spend money. It's just telling you, hey, this is where I am going to choose to spend my money and actually have a plan. Because that's what a budget is. It's a plan for your money. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is they go through the month, they get paid, they pay the bills, they spend what's in the account, and they get paid again. And that's the cycle they live in. And so breaking that and saying, you know what, I'm going to be intentional with every single dollar that I have. I love the app Every Dollar. That's the budgeting app that I use, because you're planning before you get paid to say, hey, here's where that money's going to go. And so when you have a plan, then you can spend on your values. You can spend on the things you want. You can save, you can give. You can use some margin to get out of debt. You actually are planning your income, which is so important.
Yeah, yeah. I mentioned that emotional attachment. A lot of us want the best for our kids, and sometimes we go overboard, whether it's Christmas time or back to school. I had a conversation with my son the other day. He's going to kill me, but he wanted a new backpack, and I'm like, and tell me what's wrong with the really nice one that you have at home right now? And he goes, well, I'll just buy it myself out of my money. I'm like, well, if you can afford to buy that out of your money, then I'm not giving you gas money. How about that? Right? So we were having our thing going back and forth in the store. I'm like, you're wasting money. You have a perfectly good backpack. You're not going to look more attractive with this new one. Okay. So where do we start? First of all, get rid of that emotional component. Where do we start? Do we start by taking stock in what we already have in the house in terms of supplies?
Yes, absolutely. Shop your house. You may have things already that your kids can use for back to school supplies. Like you said, they don't have to have anything brand new. My kids, their water bottles. It's like the big thing. They're like, I need a new water bottle. I'm like, no, you don't. It's not broken. The one that you have, reuse it for this year. We had that exact same discussion. And so just know what you have. And I think that's really important. And the other thing is know what you have to spend for back to school. Like you said at the top of the segment, that the average family is spending around $863. And so that's a lot of money that's going out. When you see another stat that 40% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency in cash. So that's basically double this. So I don't want you going into debt. So figure out how much cash you have available. And that's what we're going to use for back to school. So that means that we may go shop at the cheaper store. We may get the off-brand colored pencils and not the on-brand, right? So there's ways to kind of finagle this to stay within your means, because that's what's really important about all of this.
I always showed up at school. I was the kid that where you had like the box of crayons was at 12 and then 24. I had somewhere in between because I was missing some, but whatever. I specifically remember a nurse had a green face because I didn't have the flesh-colored crayon anymore, the brown crayon. She had a green face. So there you go. I was creative.
So funny.
Also looking at where you can obviously lasso and rein in some money. One of them's packing lunches instead of eating out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we're calling this the brown bag economy because so many people now are looking at their bank accounts and realizing, where can I save money? And so adults are now back to bringing their lunch to work. And so even with your kids as they're going back to school, depending on your school system, your situation, it may be cheaper for them to buy lunch at school. I'm not sure. You have to look.
Yeah.
But
well,
also,
one of the things
if
that
you're
they're doing, this is like one of those, again, generation gap type things with our children, is like, wait, what do you want now? Put money in my account, and then the restaurant will show up and deliver the food that we want because we can Uber Eats it in. And I'm like, oh,
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they are not seeing cash anymore. They're not seeing a lot of effort, right? And again, I'm guilty of this too, but what's happening, so much of our spending is online. Even my kids' school lunch money is on an app now. Like they're not even taking actual cash to school anymore. And so that's why, again, we were talking about it's so important as parents to reestablish what money is, what money looks like. And all of that is so important because, again, everything is so internet and digital based that they're just thinking that things just show up, that Amazon, the delivery guy, is just a friend, right? That he's just always there and stuff just shows up at your front door.
Just giving us stuff. At what age would you suggest that a child have an account that maybe they can manage their like lunches or things like that and look at how much they have versus how much they don't?
I would say from a standard bank account or having an account at like a credit union, probably around 15. But there's some great companies that are doing things with kids that are younger. There's a company, Greenlights, part of what they do, I love, so that you're able to kind of have this digital component with your kids. Because the truth is people don't carry cash. And even my kids this summer, we're doing stands, on our driveway of selling lemonade or candy, or my girls made bracelets. And people come by, they don't have cash to give. So they will ask, well, does your mom have Venmo? Can we just Venmo our money? And so, and it is wild. So kind of, we have to adapt with the times, which is important for our kids to learn how to handle money so that they actually, are seeing it, even if it's digital. But man, I still love regular, cash, actual cash, especially for little kids. And so I do keep cash around our house for my 6-year-old when he does chores to pay him with that because I want him to see it and feel it.
Yeah, I know the first math lesson we should all learn, right? Coming in and going out. Okay, prioritize after-school activities, which have gotten crazy. I remember, paying for band uniforms and the band instrument itself and cheerleading uniforms. All that type of stuff can really add up, especially when you have multiple kids in the household.
For sure, yeah. Families are looking anywhere from around $1,500 on average that they're going to be spending. And if you do travel sports, then it basically doubles or can triple that amount. So a couple of things, parents, this is one area that keeping up with the Joneses kind of sneaks in. And if you feel like everybody's doing travel ball, that you have to do travel ball, or if everyone's doing this, my kids have to do this. And we can almost conform to what other people are doing. So it's really important to stay within your household budget. So put the blinders on, focus on what you and your family can do. Because I think that's a mistake, is we over leverage financially. We're spending so much on all of this and we feel like we have no margin, and we end up stressed because we're paycheck to paycheck. And then also the time component's important. You know, so many families are maxing out their calendars and they are doing things from sun up to sundown with their kids. And I love doing something extra, but sometimes when we book out our kids, they're exhausted. And so from the time component too, be thinking about that. So doing what's best for you and your family from a financial perspective and a schedule perspective.
Yeah, and plan for those surprise expenses. For example, tutors. You know, a lot of people figure out their kids are having some issues with learning difficulties, and then that extra out-of-school help is expensive.
Yes, and if you have high schoolers and there's the SAT and ACT, right, and they're going to be getting tutors for that, there's so much that can happen. And so I do love in the budget to have a miscellaneous category, even for your kids. It could be a kids miscellaneous category. So when things come up that they have to buy, and again, this can go back to sports, right? They need new cleats because they've outgrown them, you know, whatever it looks like, that you actually have money in the budget to be planning ahead for the unexpected expenses, because things are going to come up, whether it's signups, pictures, you know, whatever it is, things are going to happen. And so you want to be able to create that margin for when that happens so that you're not stressed, or worse, you're going into debt for these things because you haven't had a plan. So don't let your credit card be your emergency fund. Let your budget be correct and say, hey, this is what we have to spend. You know, and or have some money set aside in savings that if you have to pull from, you can.
And one of the areas we overbuy, and I think sometimes ego gets involved, is buying clothes. Yes, they might need new clothes, but overbuying new clothes because you want to see your child be better dressed than the other kids heading to the classroom.
That's right. So much of our parenting comes out in what we buy our kids, right? It's more for us, like you were saying, than it is even for them. And so being intentional and knowing, yeah, where's your motivation? That's really big. And then also remember, your kids are going to grow. And especially, you know, the younger they are going to grow out of things so quickly. And so I think there is something about saving money on where you buy your clothes. And you're teaching your kids an important lesson that their identity is not wrapped into what they have. Because as adults, we battle that all the time. But when you can start this messaging and actually playing out in real life that it's okay to have nice stuff, but we're not going to let our nice stuff have us. And it can have us by going into debt.
That's a great way to put it.
Have us,
I just remember
if we have a belief that it's going to make us happy.
I just have this memory of looking through all of our school pictures, and there's my sister in this beautiful bright colored dress, and then 6 years later, here I am in the same dress, and it's all faded with a hole in it. But you know, we saved money on my back. That's okay, Mom. Okay, anyway, Rachel, thank you so very much. Tell your dad we said hello. When he would come through Houston at times, he would be part of our live studio audience show, and just always remember that. And thank you very much. Y'all started a revolution for the good.
Oh, thank you. Well, thanks for having me.
All right. To keep up with Rachel Cruze and The Ramsey Show, visit greatdayhouston.com and we will connect you.